shouldn't the movement kind of get beyond Fox and Bill O'Reilly?
I agree, and I think it actually has. I think this weekend's been an anomaly because part of Bill O'Reilly's jihad against Dan Rather and Bill Moyers has brought his film crew here to raise hell. But
even that, you know, getting a tweet or an email, it was the first thing I got from the conference Friday morning that the ambush Fox crews are here.
Yeah.
Why? You know, it just gets us caught up in their game. It continues the smokescreen. It makes it confusing for the public because it's like, they're just fighting again. I don't know who to believe.
And that's what they want.
Those are good points. That's right. That's exactly what they want. I will only say this about Fox and specifically O'Reilly. You know, O'Reilly's average age, I don't know if this is true, but I saw fairly credible sources that the average age of his viewer now is like 71 or something. I mean, my daughter's 20, and none of her friends know anything about O'Reilly. They know less about O'Reilly than anything on earth. It means nothing to them. I think that's true of almost anyone in this country under the age of 45. And so, I mean, he's pretty irrelevant, I think, increasingly so. So I agree.
Just also, the thing that we've said from the start of this movement, that if Fox TV had not existed, you just had the classy mainstream media, whatever term people want to use, we'd still be at war in Iraq. We still would have George Bush as the president, despite the incredibly fractured recount in Florida. Fox didn't do those things. In fact, Fox didn't employ Judith Miller. Right? So our concern is with a media system, and I think you're exactly right, Ted. When we begin to focus in on any one channel or any one entity, we end up on a dangerous track because we take people away from understanding that if Rupert Murdoch went away, somebody else would fill that chair. So I think that's a very good point. And I also think the reason why Fox, for instance, is here, right, is that thing of that fight, that notion. And here's the critical thing. We've had such tremendous success in reaching out to conservatives. We have had conservative allies, sincere National Rifle Association folks, traditional values folks, who say, look, we've got problems with media here. And maybe we don't like Bob McChesney and John Nichols, but we understand that there's a real problem and we want to forge some alliances to try and get some people power to talk to the FCC. I think many powerful entities in America are deeply troubled by bipartisan and multi-ideological coalitions that might actually change the dynamic. And I do believe there are folks who would love to divide it up and make it just a left-right struggle. We have to work very, very hard to avoid having it become that left-right struggle. And I close off with, I spoke with a woman this morning who said, look, I feel a little uncomfortable here because I'm a conservative. And first thing I did was hug her. And but the second thing, she said she agreed with all what she's hearing, but she said we need more space. And believe me, if you read our books, that's a huge theme of what we're about.
Because the truth is, Fox is here, and clearly they may show the conference in a negative light, but the mainstream's not here. I don't even think the Star Tribune and Pioneer Press in Minneapolis are here. The local stations may have come in just to do a minute 10 live shot. I mean, where's the New York Times?
I think we're going to move on here. I'll take that.
Pretty their apologies for the war.
Let's hear that.
This movement is about critiquing contemporary media, saying, boy, this thing isn't working. It's about critiquing the regulatory structures that we think cause it not to work. But it is also about exploring and celebrating those bridges, those new avenues, where we can take journalism and plant it on the internet, maybe even get journalism on cable. Who knows what next? And then someday we'd like to get some journalism in the New York Times. But bottom line is that we're about celebrating all this. And
thanks. Free Press is a group that started 5 years ago, and our point is we're based on the premise that our media system is not a natural system. It's not ordained by the Constitution, but it's the result not of markets, but of policies and subsidies made in the public's name, and regrettably too often without the public's consent. And this group was formed basically to galvanize informed popular participation in those policy decisions so we could have a media system that better serve our own interests and not just the interests of very wealthy and powerful corporations. to do as they please to make as much money. We started with a conference 5 years ago in Madison, Wisconsin. We just started, not just for our group Free Press, but for everyone interested in the subject. All our conferences are open. And the thing has exploded. The movement in general, but these conferences have proven very successful because what they do is they bring together literally thousands of people from every walk of life, every state, activists, academics, just concerned citizens who don't know anything about it, who want to learn about it, politicians, policymakers, mingling in the halls. You can go up and talk to an FCC commissioner or a U.S. senator or a journalist. There's all out there. And it's been very productive. People like them. And I'd say one crucial lesson we've learned from these conferences is why the freedom to assemble, the right to assemble, is one of the core freedoms of the First Amendment. There's immense power that comes from people physically being in the same room together, same space together, communicating together. 3,500 people in the same room, in the same conference for 3 days talking is far more impressive than 3,500 people behind computer terminals in different places, never seeing each other otherwise. And that's what these conferences are all about.
We've always just quickly also said that it's vital that people understand why the freedom of the press protection is put into the Constitution. It is not there because the founders liked the newspapers of their time. In fact, Jefferson, Adams, others were horrified by what was printed in those newspapers. But they understood that if you were going to have a free society, you needed to have a diverse, competitive, skeptical media that challenged those in power and that also informed citizens so that they could govern themselves. Our concern at the founding of this organization, which Bob and I were involved with along with Josh Silver, was that we had gotten to a point in our media system in this country where it no longer served democracy. Our sense was that we no longer had a civic and democratic media system, but rather that we increasingly had a commercial and entertainment-oriented media system. We believe that there were tens of millions of people that shared that view, and this movement has confirmed our faith. And what's exciting now as we go into this presidential campaign is that finally, for the first time, media has become an issue. The candidates for president have stands on a host of media issues. We have members of Congress who are actually campaigning on media-related issues. And this is what we wanted from the start, to see a transformation of our politics and our civic discourse so that people realized that if they want a functional democracy, they must have a functional media.
Like, what's at stake, for instance, with the issue of access to broadband in the future? Like, what do you think people should be worried about?
Well, I think it's fair to say that as we go to a digital format for communication increasingly, and that becomes not just the trend, but the absolute rule, access to broadband systems at fair prices and equitable speeds and without censorship or interference by private or governmental institutions is sort of the foundation of the whole system, freedom of speech. And this affects not only people who care about civic life and politics, but even people who couldn't care less about it. People who only want to party and do their own thing, and they will be affected by this too. It affects all of us. You can't get away from it. I would say that access and neutrality for the digital system is the essence of freedom of speech for the digital era. If you don't have that, if the cable and phone companies, for example, have the right to censor websites, or they have the right to keep costs prohibitive for a significant number of people to get access to the internet, then you basically can't have anything remotely close to a Republican form of government.
And what's at stake with media ownership, the concentration of media ownership with these 6 companies?
What's at stake? Well, I think that one doesn't even require the internet. That was really sort of basic. If freedom of information or access to information and ideas is the foundation of self-government to no small extent, it's in the interest of the public to have as many quality sources as possible to prevent the fact that there could be a bottleneck that would serve the interests of those who hold the bottleneck. I think that one of the problems in the United States is not just that we have fewer owners, but rather it's the type of system we have that's very homogeneous, a corporate commercial system. So whether you have 9 owners or 4 owners or 11 owners or 3 owners, whatever, pick your number, they're all playing by the same rules. Now, monopolistic power makes it worse, but ideally a truly heterogeneous and pluralistic media system have different types of structures, different, not just one type, not just purely corporate commercial.